You suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about that for a moment. Not because pain isn't real, not because life isn't difficult, but because the human mind has a strange habit. It rehearses disasters that never happen. It replays conversations that are long over. It predicts rejection before anyone has spoken. It imagines failure before the first step is even taken. And in doing so, it creates a second layer of suffering, one that exists only in thought. The Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." He understood something timeless about human nature. Most of our anxiety does not come from events themselves. It comes from the stories we tell about those events. You send a message. They don't reply immediately. Your mind says, "They're ignoring me." I said something wrong. They're upset. An hour later, they respond normally. Nothing was wrong. But for that entire hour, you lived in a reality that did not exist. This is how imagination becomes a source of suffering. The mind is powerful. It evolved to anticipate danger. Thousands of years ago, imagining the rustling in the bushes as a predator kept our ancestors alive. But today, that same survival mechanism misfires. The predator is no longer a tiger. It's a presentation at work, a test result, a social interaction, a future that hasn't happened yet. And so we imagine. We imagine losing the job before the interview. We imagine humiliation before speaking. We imagine betrayal before trust has even been tested. And the body reacts as if it's real. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your stomach tightens. The threat exists only in thought, but the suffering feels physical. That is the power of imagination. The problem is not that we imagine. The problem is that we believe what we imagine without question. The mind creates a scenario. We treat it as truth. This is how anxiety feeds itself. One thought leads to another. One what if multiplies into 10. Before long, you're not dealing with a single event. You're dealing with a chain reaction of imagined catastrophes. What if I fail? What if they judge me? What if everything falls apart? But ask yourself, how many of those worst-case scenarios have actually happened in your life? When the exam finally comes, you just write. When the meeting begins, you just speak. When the conversation happens, you just respond. The mind's drama collapses in the face of action. This is one of the core teachings of Stoicism. Philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius emphasized a crucial distinction: the difference between what is in our control and what is not. Imagination usually focuses on what is not in our control. What if they don't like me? What if I get rejected? What if the outcome is bad? But outcomes are rarely fully within our control. Effort is. Preparation is. Character is. When you shift your focus from imagined outcomes to present action, suffering decreases. Because suffering thrives in the future. Peace lives in the present. The mind time travels and the body pays a price. And yet the future has not asked for your fear. Consider how often we replay the past as well. You think about something embarrassing you said years ago. You imagine that people still remember it. You cringe, you judge yourself again. But most likely no one else remembers. And if they do, they don't care nearly as much as you think. Imagination does not only create future suffering, it resurrects past suffering. It keeps wounds open long after the event has ended. This is why awareness is powerful. The moment you notice I am imagining, you create space. Instead of being inside the storm, you step outside it. Instead of this will be a disaster, it becomes, my mind is predicting a disaster. That small shift changes everything. Because a thought is not a fact. A scenario is not reality. An emotion is not a prophecy. When you stop automatically believing every thought, imagination loses its power to torture you. This does not mean you become careless. It does not mean you ignore risks. It means you prepare without panicking. Preparation is rational. Catastrophizing is imagination. There is a difference. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. One spends weeks worrying, losing sleep, imagining every possible failure. The other prepares calmly, accepts uncertainty, and focuses on effort. The outcome may be the same for both, but the first person suffered twice, once in imagination and once in reality. The second person suffered only once, if at all. Which life would you rather live? Suffering once is unavoidable. Suffering twice is optional. The mind also exaggerates permanence. It tells you, if this goes wrong, everything is ruined. But life rarely works that way. Failure is rarely final. Rejection is rarely absolute. Embarrassment fades. Even genuine loss, though painful, changes shape over time. Imagination freezes pain in its most dramatic form. Reality allows it to move, to evolve, to be processed. Another way imagination intensifies suffering is through comparison. You imagine others judging you. You imagine others being ahead. You imagine others thinking poorly of you. But you do not have access to their minds. You only have access to your own. And often what you are truly battling is not other people's opinions, but your imagination of their opinions. The Stoics practiced something called negative visualization, briefly imagining worst-case scenarios not to panic, but to build resilience. The key difference is intention. When imagination is unconscious, it creates anxiety. When imagination is deliberate and brief, it creates gratitude and strength. If you imagine losing something you value, you appreciate it more. If you imagine facing difficulty, you realize you could survive it. Used wisely, imagination becomes a tool. Used carelessly, it becomes a prison. So how do you reduce unnecessary suffering? First, notice when you are time traveling. Are you in this moment, or are you inside a mental movie about tomorrow? Second, question the story. Is this a fact, or is this a prediction? Third, return to action. What can I do right now? Not next week, not next year, right now. Small actions cut through imagined chaos. Send the email. Start the task. Have the conversation. Take the step. Action grounds you in reality. Reality is usually less terrifying than the fantasy. You might be thinking, but what if the worst actually happens? Then you deal with it when it happens. Humans are remarkably adaptable. We underestimate our ability to handle real problems and overestimate the pain of imagined ones. Think of challenges you have already survived. At one point, they felt overwhelming. Now they are part of your story. You adapted, you adjusted, you continued. That is what you will do again. Imagination tells you that you are fragile. Reality proves you are stronger than you think. There is a quiet confidence that grows when you stop fighting imaginary battles. You conserve energy. You sleep better. You think clearer. Instead of scattering your attention across dozens of possible futures, you invest it in the present. And the present is manageable. Right now, in this moment, you are breathing. Right now, you are alive. Right now, nothing catastrophic is happening. The mind may be loud, but reality is often calm. Peace is not found by controlling every possible outcome. It is found by accepting uncertainty. Uncertainty is uncomfortable, but it is also neutral. It only becomes terrifying when imagination paints it as disaster. The truth is simple. You do not know what will happen, and neither does your fear. Fear speaks confidently, but it does not see the future. It only guesses, and most of the time, it guesses wrong. When you catch yourself spiraling, pause and ask, what evidence do I have right now? Not yesterday, not tomorrow, right now. Usually the evidence is thin. The story is thick, and stories can be rewritten. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. That separation is freedom. The goal is not to eliminate imagination. It is to stop letting it dominate you. Imagine possibilities, yes. Dream, yes. Plan, yes. But do not rehearse suffering. Do not live through disasters that may never arrive. Life will bring real challenges. It always does. But when they come, you will face them directly, not through the distorted lens of anxiety, but through clarity and presence. And most of the time, you will discover something surprising. Reality is rarely as unbearable as imagination predicted. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. So when the mind begins to run ahead, gently bring it back. Back to your breath. Back to this room. Back to this moment. Because this moment is real, and in this moment, you are okay. Let tomorrow arrive on its own. When it does, you will meet it, not as a victim of imagined fear, but as a person who understands that most suffering was never required in the first place.